the idea is that if you believe the right things, everything will turn out right. And if you don't believe the right things, they won't. In the creative process, the history of the arts, for example, and also science and technology, it doesn't matter what you believe. There are people who believed all kinds of stuff. There are people who have had high self-esteem and mostly low self-esteem and have been tremendously accomplished. And I really think that the people in the self-esteem industry have never read a biography of successful people. Because if they had, they would understand that most of these people had low self-esteem.
Hello, Awaken Beauties. Finally, it's here. The truth to empower women to true inner beauty through a healthy mind and inner biology. I am your hostess, Cassandra Keogh, a 20-year salon owner, organic beauty product formulator, positive mind management, and clinical hypnotherapist. And I am here to help you stay sane, get sleep, and bring your sexy back. Sponsored by evokebeauty.com. evoqbeauty.com. Now, let's get to it. All right, ladies, if you're looking for healthy hair, beautiful skin, and a calm, quiet, clean, collected, powerful mind with superior CBD, go to evokebeauty.com. That's evoqbeauty.com. And you'll receive 25% off your very first order with the code AWAKEN. Again, that's evoqbeauty.com. Use the code AWAKEN for 25% off your first order. All right. Welcome to the Awaken Beauty Podcast. I am Cassandra, your organic beauty, positive mind management, and clinical hypnotherapist. And we have such an exciting show today. It's a very foundational premise, but so important at such a time as this. And as a self-development junkie, super learner, and entrepreneur that lives to create products and experiences, I do not even want to think about how much time, money, and effort I've spent on books and seminars and masterminds, you name it, all the bright and shiny objects, that I thought I needed to activate my true identity, my true genius, to bring success into my life. And news for you, burnout is not beautiful. And so for those that listen to this podcast, I bet the same is true for you. You feel you have a calling, are meant for more, and long for just having joy and purpose. And you may obtain success for a while to find that you're right back into the same emotional frustration and place of where you began, or just got a little bit further along. Well, I'm here to say it's not personal. Is structural. And the more you look outside yourself, lack of clarity on what you want in your life, the more you procrastinate, feel frustrated, and will struggle. And in fact, our guest today says it best. We fail to change because we fight habits with willpower, positive thinking, affirmations, and other similar self-help techniques. So to capture insights on how to break this mold, I am so honored to have prolific writer and true creator Robert Fritz on the Awaken Beauty podcast. Now, Robert and I share how the structure of self-development ironically causes people to more likely not change. So I have to say, Robert's insights planted a sapling seed that has taken root and grown an entire new blossoming way of how I empower my current Life in Bloom coaching program. And you'll learn why here today on the podcast. So a little bit about Robert. Robert began his career playing music and studying and teaching musical composition. He began to see that the structural principles that are so much a part of a composer's art have profound importance when applied to human development. It is from these insights that his structural approach was born. And at the same time, Robert began to see that the very same process that creators use to create could be applied to the way people live their daily lives. That is, it is possible to approach the life of building process in the exact same way. So aside being an accomplished composer, filmmaker, and writer, he is also an organizational consultant for some of the largest companies in the world. His first of many top-selling books is The Path of Least Resistance, and became an international bestseller, in which we will start our conversation today. So, Robert Fritz, thank you so much for being on the Awaken Beauty podcast. It is truly an honor.
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. You have written The Path of Least Resistance. You've also written the book Identity, and being in the health and beauty industry. On one part, I'm in the beauty industry and I'm constantly working with women's identity. And oftentimes we grow up. I think Joe Dispenza says it best. We're 35 and we're just repeating our day every day. And then we move into your other book, The Path of Least Resistance, in which at that same concept, 35 and older, we're most likely working out of the wrong path of least resistance versus looking at how we really truly are a part in nature and that we replicate nature in the path of least resistance, but we fight it. So I want to welcome you on and just kind of start us off on how you, maybe starting with the path of least resistance, setting us up on what the main premise is and why it's so important, especially during coming out of COVID, why we have an opportunity to really step into the different lens of path of least resistance.
Well, it begins with three important insights. And the first one is this, that energy always moves along the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. So I'm using the scientific version of it, not the colloquial version, the easy way out. And this is physics. That's all energy can do, is move along the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. The second insight is that the underlying structure of anything will determine that path of least resistance. It's the riverbed that determines where the water flows. And the third insight, which is the one that gives us all hope, is that we can change the underlying structures we're in. So if we're in a structure that leads us to places we don't want to go, there's a possibility that we can change the underlying structure and thereby change the path of least resistance, thereby set it up so that, in fact, we have more of a chance of accomplishing those things that matter most to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you often talk about how we are either in a place of oscillation or in going into advancement. And I really love the example that you used with the rocking chair. And, I think a lot of people can attest this is how they feel in life, and so maybe you can kind of set up, the reality of where most of us live in that space of oscillation.
Well, it's not just a feeling, it's usually history. In other words, an oscillating pattern begins with you set out for something and maybe you do whatever it takes, you accomplish it, you have it for a period of time. And then in the story, there is a reversal. And at the end of the story, you no longer have what you want. And it's not a good ending. It's not like you buy a house and you sold it for a better house. This is not that kind of story. This is like the great relationship that didn't last or the business success that turned into a failure. It is a common pattern in people's lives. Now, there are two patterns. One is an advancing pattern. You set out for something, you do what it takes, you accomplish it, and that success then becomes the platform for future success. And that's the pattern we want, that we create things and we create other things and we create other things. Mm-hmm. So years ago, I was on the phone with somebody and they were telling me about how I had asked them about their relationship, because when I last talked to them 6 months before, they had just gotten into a new relationship, which they were all excited about. And okay, well, now the relationship was over, and what happened? And so what happened for me, I was sitting at my desk and I started jotting down the steps that he was telling me. I didn't have anything in mind. I just kind of had nothing to do. So I was just writing the steps like a storyboard for a film or something. And then when I looked at it, I saw, well, every step logically led to the next step, 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 led to the next step. And so what I did was I abstracted from that story a general pattern. And then I asked him, look, tell me about another time when you set out for something, you had it for a period of time. At the end of the story, you no longer had it. And don't tell me what it is, but I will ask you questions. And the questions I asked, did you do step 1? Yes. Did you do step 2? Yes. Did you do step 3? Yes. And on it went. And he did every single step in that second story that he'd done in the first. And then I checked it out with 5 or 6 other stories, and he had done every single step. And I thought, well, I'm really onto something here. And so I started doing the patterns of everybody I knew just to try to test this thing out, and realized that for most people, there are 2 patterns, and one is oscillating and the other is advancing, and they're very specific to the person. Now, just to really cut to the chase, over all these years, what we've discovered is the reason that the oscillating pattern exists is because people have various concepts, various belief systems. Now, this is not about negative beliefs. This is not about positive thinking. It's not about having the right beliefs. It's about leaving your beliefs and concept at the door, because in the creative process, it doesn't matter what you believe. Mm-hmm. Now, people in what I call the belief business, they really are in the belief business. What their major action is conversion. Mm-hmm. They want everybody to believe the right things. What the idea is that if you believe the right things, everything will turn out right. And if you don't believe the right things, they won't. In the creative process, the history of the arts, for example, and also science and technology, it doesn't matter what you believe. There are people who believed all kinds of stuff. There are people who have had high self-esteem and mostly low self-esteem, mm-hmm. and have been tremendously accomplished. And I really think that the people in the self-esteem industry have never read a biography of successful people, because if they had, they would understand that most of these people had low self-esteem. We have a list in the identity book of all of these various people, Mother Teresa, Churchill, yep. A lot of rock stars, on and on it goes, who had low self-esteem. Now, why is it so that they could have low self-esteem and be so successful? And the reason is because what they thought about themselves didn't matter. Mm-hmm. What did matter is how well they created the outcomes that they wanted to create. Right. And so I think like a revolutionary and probably to some people annoying insight is it doesn't matter what you think about yourself. I want to say something about the beauty industry that you're in, because there's 2 ways of thinking about it. And I think one of the ways can really work well and the other way can't. One way is what we see for a lot of professional actors and actresses, because I'm a filmmaker and I hire actors and actresses. And particularly for romantic leads, their looks really do count. For character actors, not so much. Mm-hmm. The thing about it is, for those actors and actresses who are really professionals, they don't think about their looks as being a matter of personal identity. They see it as a matter of part of what they're creating, separate from themselves, so that they can really get the roles and play the parts that demand that their talents. Right. And one of the ways of thinking about beauty is, you're not your looks. Mm-hmm. And as a creator, you can make your looks, you can think about your looks as a creation the same way a painter would think about a painting, separate from you. If you can separate yourself from whatever, beauty or cosmetic or visual presence you'd like to have, you're free then to think about, well, this worked, oh, that didn't work so well, maybe this is good, maybe that's good. So this is, I think, an important principle for the folks that you work with.
All right, ladies, if you're looking for healthy hair, beautiful skin, and a calm, quiet, clean, collected, powerful mind with superior CBD, go to evokebeauty.com. That's EVOQbeauty.com. And you'll receive 25% off your very first order with the code AWAKEN. Again, that's evoqbeauty.com. Use the code AWAKEN for 25% off your first order. And it's the demise and as a creative being and as a business owner, as a colorist, as a stylist behind the chair, we really look at the individual as a piece of art. You know what I mean? And we get to be in a partnership in being able to create more chosen identity, whatever that is, whether it's a different hair color or a sassy new cut. But, what I find is that when we want to when we want to create a change, when women create a large change in their life, it's not out of inspiration and what you're talking about here. If somebody comes in and a woman wants to cut their hair really short, and I just sense, that sixth sense, it's usually out of a trauma, or it's wanting to create a different identity because they no longer want to be the old identity, out of wanting to run from that sense of space, time, and situation, versus what you're talking about is it doesn't matter what you think. It's not personal. It's not who you are. Being in creative spirit, you just get to create it because you want to, because you enjoy being in this space of being a creator. And I think, that's what's so incredible about all of your books is that it really talks to the fundamental premise of we are all creators made in the image of our creator. And that's what we do as humans. That's what humans do with a thinking brain. Animals don't go and create, but humans get to. And to your point about all these incredible actresses, movie stars, whomever it is, they may have a shadow life underneath it all. That shadow life is that their vision, their why, whatever people want to call it, was so much more powerful than the failure that they kept failing forward to actually continue to be in the creative process. So I really love where you took that, but I just wanted to kind of share that women sitting in my chair, it's really my message to them is getting them out of their thinking of what they think they should do based on their age, of saying, well, how do you want to feel in your hair? Do you want to feel bold? Do you want to feel light? So it gets them out of the construct of what they should do or what have you, exactly what you're talking about in that right tension.
Yeah. The thing about it is you describe somebody wanting to change their hair because of some problem or they want to run away from something. And that's not the creative process. That's problem solving.
Right.
And they'll never win. I mean, it'll never be, you know what I mean? It'll never be right, even if it looks good.
Yep.
The thing about it is there's nothing wrong with wanting to do the best you can with whatever you've got. I like that idea, by the way. I like the whole idea of people, bringing out the best in themselves and their looks and so on. And you can do that if it's not about identity. It's not about your identity. It has nothing to do with your identity. Yeah, in the 60s, there was this kind of countercultural prejudice against looking good or doing something to look good. That is to say, and it was completely silly, the el natural. And human beings have the ability to
create,
put on nice clothes and do their hair nicely and do makeup and do those things that really are quite visually enhancing, the same way a painter can make a painting. Right. Totally nothing wrong with that. Something really nice about that. If you don't take it personally.
Right.
And here's the thing. I mean, when the actors that actually did take that kind of thing personally, for example, there were actresses who were known for their beauty and when they got older had problems. And then there were actors who didn't have that going on. There were really actors who, when they got older, could do the parts that age presented to them. And they had like a career that was continuous versus just a flash in the pan. I remember something that Rita Hayworth said. She said it was about the illusion that men had about her. And she said, men go to bed with Gilda and they wake up with me.
I love that.
Gilda was this role she played where she's, this very sexy lady.
Yeah.
And the men had this illusion about her. And then they discovered it was not her at all. And she knew that it wasn't her at all.
Yeah. And I think, when you can step outside of your made up identity, because really we created our life, right? We created our identity. We created everything that we sit and stand in, the construct that we're in. We really did create, and yes, there are subconscious thoughts in that. But when you can let that go, it is entirely freeing. And it's when you step outside of that and start creating from just because you love it and you're inspired by things. And the key here is I want to really, really press down on, and with the coaching program that I do with the women, is that it can take a little bit of time to really kind of pull yourself out of that mold and start to just create the process. And, you talk about the creative cycle, you talk about germination and assimilation and completion and how we travel through these stages. But when you can let go of it and just start creating from something that you love, like the world is endless and you actually enter into the emotion of joy and excitement. It doesn't mean you're going to have, let's call them failures. Who cares? We all fail to success. We iterate to awesome, right? So there is a germination process. There's the concept. You become aware of it. Then there's assimilation and really creating that riverbed like you talked about. And I just love your visual of that. And I think you've said in a seminar that I've listened to is that, when you look at something and you read it as in the copy, but then you put the visualization behind it, the intelligence rises so much more. So having that vision, having that why out of it's not personal, just to be in creation is really where the juice comes from. It's really where the power comes into play.
Let's also, though, understand that the creative process really is based on two things. The outcome you want to create and reality as it currently is. All artistic endeavors, the whole creative process is about reality. It's not about your attitude, by the way. So the American thing is to think if you change your attitude, everything will be okay. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about our attitude. Do you know the show Chopped? It's on the Food Network.
Yes.
And they have 4 chefs that are competing. And then, they make the or starter, and then one of them gets chopped, and then there's 3, and then one of them gets chopped, and then there's 2, and one of them gets chopped, and then there's the final winner. And so often on the show, the people that get chopped complain that it wasn't that they didn't cook as well as the other folks. It was they didn't have the right attitude. Going into it, they interview these chefs, and they say, well, if I'm going to win because I have the right attitude. And it's always about, because I really think I can do it. And, it's all about attitude. And the show is really about skill. It's not about attitude. It's all about skill.
Yep.
Now, there was only one guy I saw that said I lost because my competition was better. And he was French. All the Americans were about attitude. And I think this is where we go wrong. Look, it's really simple. Reality, you don't have to actually let go of anything if you are in reality.
Right.
And in reality, you're not your looks, you're not your hair color, you're not you're not your clothes. Those are things that you can have, and you can't be what you have.
Right.
And so knowing that you're not those things makes it easier to separate yourself from all of these things that then become available to the creative process. So there isn't like a giving up so much as there is getting in touch with reality, how it actually is, and you're actually not your hair color.
Yeah.
I mean, would you be the same person? Here's the test. Would you be the same person if your hair was brown or white or blue or red or yellow? You see what I mean? It's like you're still the same person with a different color hair.
And that's what I really love about the frankness and the honesty with going back to, with the best of intentions, Robert, the self-development industry. And everybody's kind of coming out of working out of their woundings, and they had something that helped them. And so they put the facade of mindset on it. And then we just walk around and we're like, you don't have the right mindset. It's all about mindset. Well, really, what is mindset? Your mindset's
the same as attitude. It means the same thing. But here's the thing that is some of the limitations of the self-help world and human potential movement, is it tells people to focus more and more inwardly. And so they become self-obsessed.
Yep.
And what we're doing is we're telling people, don't think about yourself. It doesn't matter what you think about yourself. Look, it doesn't matter what you think about yourself. You still want good relationships, no matter what you think. You still want to do work that's meaningful to you, no matter what you think. You still want to have good friends and good family members, no matter what you think about yourself. I mean, you want good health, no matter what you think about yourself. You know, so what you think about yourself is independent of what you think about yourself. Now, in the self-help movement, they make that connection.
Yep.
The idea is like this. I mean, if you think well of yourself, you'll do nice things, and if you don't think well of yourself, you'll sabotage yourself. Totally not true. If you no longer think about yourself and just think about what you want and where you are in relationship to that, and you're not thinking about me, you're thinking about it, then you're free.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to separating yourself from yourself to the creator. And, that goes back into the self-love, the radical self-love. And again, best of intentions. But, if, like you say, if you love yourself, you're not going to walk around saying, I doing affirmations, I love myself, because you're just trying to talk yourself into something in which you already are. You are yourself. Celebrate yourself.
Well, or you wait a second, or you may not love yourself, and it doesn't matter.
True.
It doesn't matter, because if you don't love yourself, you still want good relationships. If you don't love yourself, you still want good health. Not everybody is a fan of themselves, and it doesn't matter.
Yep.
John Lennon said at one point, he said, I'm not really a Beatles fan. Now, he didn't have to be a Beatles fan to be a great Beatle.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing about the love yourself posters and so on, again, it drives your focus inwardly, and not sometimes people love themselves, sometimes they don't love themselves. And if you make that the centerpiece of your life, you'll measure yourself by how much love you have for yourself, right, which in fact, in reality, is irrelevant.
Yep. Yeah, I love that.
I know that's shocking to a lot of people.
It really is. But when you can start to step out of the construct of being so selfishly thinking and to really step into that new reality, it's very freeing. And whether that's, it just...
I describe it a little bit differently. It's not stepping into a new reality. It's stepping from concept and illusion into reality.
Yep.
Reality is reality, and you either see it or you don't see it. So it isn't like different. It's not like substituting one belief system for another. It's really seeing the truth of the matter, which is, you love did you ever try to love somebody you didn't love? That didn't work.
Doesn't work. No.
If we could, one of the things we don't have as choice, we have a lot of things about choice, but one of the things we don't have is love. And if we could choose who we'd love, we would only choose people to love who loved us back. Mm-hmm. There'd never be unrequited love. All of those great songs would go away.
So true. So
but,
true.
You might love yourself. You might not love yourself. Nonetheless, you still want good things for yourself. And I think that is true in reality, period.
Yeah, absolutely. For you, listeners of Awaken Beauty podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Simply go to www.audibletrial.com/Awaken Beauty podcast. That's www.audibletrial.com Awaken Beauty podcast. Another thing I wanted to talk about is where we get caught up in oscillating is problem solving. If we can kind of just dig into that a little bit. So what has been your experience, both on an individual level, and you also work a lot with corporate, and how we as creators and problem solvers. As an entrepreneur, we're kind of positioned as we just love to problem solve. And so we go and create new things by problem solving people's problems. Versus just creating it because you want to create something new and that's beneficial for all and it's something that you love. So I think a lot of individuals, and you maybe speak into this a little bit, we've fastly backtrack into oscillation by trying to problem solve or trying to figure something out versus just keeping the vision on the riverbed.
You can solve all of your problems and still not have what you want.
Yep.
Secondly, problem solving is you're taking action to have something go away, the problem. Creating, you're taking action to have something come into being, creation. Now, this is not positive thinking. You're not just thinking, everything's great. What you are doing is you're looking at two data points. One is the outcome you want and current reality as it currently exists in relationship to the outcome. We call that structural tension.
Yep.
In the beginning of the creative process, there will always be tension, structural tension, because there's a difference between what you want and what you have. That's why you create, to bring this into being. And that difference it's not pressure, it's not anxiety, it's not nervousness. It is structural. It's like a rubber band. It's like an archer stretching the bow, aiming the arrow at the target. And what do you need for those things? You need to know what you want and you need to know what you have. Period. And that's not problem solving. Now, there may be in current reality certain problems that you need to address as part of the creative process. But the point of it is not the problem solving. In fact, so often what turns out is that you don't have to solve certain problems. You can create other ways of approaching the outcome.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a very quick example. I was at a $9 billion organization in California, and I gave the senior executives this talk about the difference between problem solving and creating. The corporate attorney went back to his group and he gave them the talk I had just given to the group. And they were looking at this lawsuit and they were about to engage in. And they said, what is the outcome we want? And they described the outcome. And where are we now? And they described where they were now. And they realized they didn't have to do the lawsuit to get to the outcome. And it saved them. He told me this story later. It saved them something like $5 or $6 million just by rethinking the whole premise, starting instead of what's the problem we want to get rid of, what's the outcome we want to create. I think no matter what the problem is, the first question you ought to ask yourself is what's the outcome I want to create? An absence of the problem is not the outcome. It's like, what do you really want? And then where are you now in relationship to that? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Don't just include the bad. It should be the whole, whatever is relevant. And then you've got the premise. Then you can, from that structure, you can begin to take action, strategic action that enables you to move from where you are to where you want to be.
Can you say a little bit
more?
That,
by the way, is the essence of the creative process.
Exactly. Absolutely.
What would you like me to say?
Well, I was just going to go into if there's anything that you can include in there as far as how the primary and secondary choices kind of can support each other in that process.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The primary choice means first. It means this is the outcome we're trying to achieve. And in order to accomplish that outcome, there might be several secondary choices that we need to take to support the outcome. If we didn't have the outcome, we may not take them. For example, exercise. A lot of people don't like to exercise. As a primary choice of optimal health, they might in fact exercise, eat the right diet, and do a number of things that if they weren't connected to the outcome they wanted to create, they wouldn't do.
Right.
So the key to discipline really is the relationship between these strategic secondary choices in relationship to the primary choice. And that's, again, if we set up structural tension, as we're moving from where we are to where we want to be, there might be a series of these secondary choices that we make. And by the way, when I call them secondary choices, they're really choices.
Right.
You don't have to do them. A choice means you can do it or not. Obligation means you've got to do it. Choice means you can do it or not. But you choose to do it, and it's not a trade-off. You actually strategically choose to do it because it supports a higher order desire, which is the outcome that you want to achieve.
Right. Focus. Focus is your reality. Focus creates your reality. Right. And stepping into the last 6 months for you, Robert, can you say a little bit, this is the Awaken Beauty podcast, on anything from your previous work or new work that has inspired you as to what you've awakened to just through this process of really watching a global shift and watching as many individuals are having to recreate who they want to be?
Well, one of the things that I think we can observe is that I guess, you could say for me, it was discovery or weird thing to find out. I always thought that survival was people's most prime instinct.
Right.
And then we watch all these people gathering together without masks and not social distancing and getting sick, really getting sick. And you got to scratch your head and say, well, wait a second. For some people, survival is not their most important instinct. Identity is. Almost always these things are based on identity. No one's going to tell me to, this kind of crazy thing. People really are getting sick. Reality is that there's a pandemic going on, period. You got to acknowledge that. Step one is to acknowledge that it's a pandemic and it's dangerous. And if our primary goal is survival, in many ways, we're powerless to change the situation we're in. We can't sort of on our own invent the vaccine or change the world. So we really have to understand that as that's now the canvas upon which we're playing. It's not good to ignore reality. And we all know what the logistics should. The logistics are really simple. Social distancing, physical isolation, wear a mask, wash your hands. These aren't really difficult things. They really aren't. And what leads to them is survival. Now, last week, we have, again, averaged around 1,000 deaths a day. And last week, Canada had none.
Wow.
Now listen, Canadians and Americans are pretty close in lifestyle. It's not like Canadians are completely different than Americans or Americans are completely different than Canadians. We're not exactly the same, but we're pretty close.
Right.
But the Canadians really did all of the things they needed to do. And we're running around, some of us, I was thinking about that 450,000 motorcyclists came to that little town in North Dakota.
And
that actually has it's been a super spreader event. And, you hear these folks, well, I'm going to really, and it's like, oh my God. So when you ask me what I've discovered, human beings can be weird, especially Americans.
That is so funny.
Come on, guys.
Well, and you could paint it up to how people want to stand their ground for COVID based on their beliefs or how they want to position themselves. But you make a very, very valid point. Because it is.
Let's see them do that. But wait. Let's see them do that against gravity. Jump off a building and let's see how well it works. Wearing a mask or not. Let's see if, in fact, you go up, you go stay right there, or you go down. Physics wins.
Yeah. Well, I think that through the test of time, whatever era that you want to go back to and whatever kind of crisis somebody is in, they're going to stand their ground on what they believe in, which is their identity. And, that goes back to the beginning of the show and really talking about, I understand your point about you are not who you think you are and your identity is your identity, but we make our identities through, there are influences from subconscious belief sets, patterns, different cultures that we're in, all of these things that, to your point, it's not stepping out of that and into reality. It's waking up to reality and starting to come from a place of choosing to create versus problem solving or, all of these oscillating patterns that we have in our life. And this is what led me to your work and why I love it so much is that it's very, very obvious if we're working out of that structure or if we're so passionate about being human and stepping into our human birthright of we are creators. And there's such beauty and magnificent and incredibleness in that. And sometimes it's dark because humans are dark too, right? But it is what is. And it's a very, very stark reality and truth. And, I'd rather live a life in flow in the path of least resistance than the path of least resistance back to old patterns or old ways of thinking or things that you've been told who you are or what you are. To me, I wanted to have you on because we're at such a point, especially globally, whatever that is, any time in our life, we're at a point where we can truly wake up to reality. I'll say it in that sense, not step into reality, but wake up and become conscious of what our powers are, no matter how many times you fail. The tension should always be on what you love.
One of the things that is important to know in terms of desire is that not all desire is created equally. So, as human beings, we have instincts, impulses, reactions, fears, obsessions, stress.
Right.
And that can lead to kind of a disorientation or confusion.
Yes.
And this is why, when you see these kids going to bars, they spend all this time trying to get to the university. They go to the university, and then they go to a bar.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, they are in a frame of desire, which we could call appetites, instincts, and impulses.
Right.
And it demands immediate gratification, and there's no sense of future. Their sense of time is right now. They can't see the relationship between right now and the consequences of what they might be doing. And one of the things that we can do to help people is to have them back up. And what the next level of desire is true aspirations and values, what you aspire to and what you value, what you hold meaningful. Now, values and aspirations have a longer time frame. So if you have an aspiration, it doesn't demand immediate gratification. What it does demand is the discipline, like the secondary choices to the primary choices, to get there. And one explanation of understanding how some of these kids can be so self-destructive, to the point where then they get isolated. And then some of them got in a Northeastern University in Boston, they kicked the kids out of school and charged them for the year. That's how mad they were at that, that they went to the bar and they got sick from that. But that the reason they did that is because they're all in appetites and not in aspirations. And you think about diet, for example, a lot of people are in appetites and not aspirations. And so it's the immediate gratification that they're after, and it can be compulsive. And if that's the case, you got to plan ahead, knowing you have that. It's like if you go to the and you're going to eat cake, and you're going to do that, bring the celery.
Enjoy it.
So you'll have something to eat while they have something to eat.
But yes, pre-plan. If you have your creative, if you have your attention and your vision and your values structured strong enough, you would bring your broccoli and exchange it for the cake. Yes. And I love the values piece because that, again, we attach ourselves to other people's values or religious values or other values. And that's why we get really confused on what our values are. It's one of the first things I bring my coaching group through. And it takes at least 2 or 3 sessions to really get clear on what are your values and really identifying those. And then on the right side, every single night before they go to bed, I have them write down, and this goes back to DeMartini, but what are your low-level distractions, that impulse, that gratification you're talking about, that puts you back into what you would say is oscillation or pulled you off track of your big goal, your attention, whatever you want to call it. But that's all these low-level distractions and miscombobulated values of what we really truly think we value takes time.
Well, it's good to know our bad habits, not as a problem-solving device, just basically to know our tendencies.
Right.
So that we can choose which is more important to us. Values, by the way, are always seen in relationship to something else. They're not just something you favor. You know your values when they're in contrast or in conflict with other values.
Right.
Let's say you have 2 values. One is kindness and the other is truth. And your sister does a concert and she can't sing in tune. She can't carry a tune in a basket, as they say. And if kindness were your higher value, you'd say, sis, you were great. And if truth were your higher value, you'd say, sis, don't give up your day job. This is when you know your values, is when they're in competition with other competing values.
Yeah, that's really great. I just think it's just very true as far as the reactive response tendency, especially when we're walking around with that in that primitive brain and in that very stressed state. We're very unclear, and our mind, our consciousness, our conscious mind is not able to access that part of the values and live in that so that we can be in that flow and that structure you talk about. So that's wonderful. All right, ladies, if you're looking for natural, organic, solution-based beauty and superior CBD, go to evoquebeauty.com. That's evoquebeauty.com and receive 25% off your very first order with the code AWAKEN. Again, that's evoquebeauty.com. Type in the code AWAKEN for 25% off your first order. And Robert, what else is kind of coming up for you? And just, you have such a vast background. What's kind of the new frontier for you and how you're sharing these different concepts with the world?
I've been a composer my whole life. I've bachelor's and master's of composition from Boston Conservatory and so on. But this year, for the first time, I started writing songs with Dennis Smith, who's the leader of the band Party on the Moon. And we wrote a Christmas show. And for that show, we've written over 40 songs. And then we're also writing a number of rock songs, which I've never done before. So it's kind of new for me to be a songwriter. I haven't been a songwriter before. I've been a composer. It's different than a songwriter. I've always respected songwriters. It's a different art form. And that's been great. I have a lot of things going. I mean, we wanted to go to Japan this year, but we couldn't. But one of the reasons I wanted to go is there's a film I want to make there that if we can get to go next year. It's actually, when I was there last year, I had this idea for a script. And one of the people in my workshop runs a theater in Tokyo. And so we got together and chose some of his actors. And then I wrote a script in English, which they translated into Japanese. And this year I was going to go and shoot that film, but I'm going to have to wait another year to be able to do that. So these are the kinds of, I have a really quite interesting life.
You are a creator, Robert. You absolutely are writing rock songs. That's awesome. Something I need to put on my list. That's amazing. And, just to to kind of end our conversation, between the widespread of all your brilliant work, what do you find are the top 3 things that you would want to leave us here with today as far as just premises to fully grasp and understand? It can be something that we've already talked about today, from the self-development and fix me piece to whatever that is. What are the top 3 things that you see repeat over and over again with individuals that if you could just get them understand?
Yeah, thank you. I think the first one is what we talked about. It doesn't really matter what you think about yourself. Don't spend any time trying to change your opinion of yourself. Don't even think about what your opinion is. Don't try to answer the question, who am I? Who am I? If you need to answer that question, answer it by this saying, who wants to know? It's not a good question. It's not a useful question. What is the useful question is, what do I want to create?
Yep.
Secondly, particularly the work that you do in beauty and so on, which, I think is a great thing. I think it's terrific for people to have ways of improving how they look and so on. And I see that really exactly as a creative process. To really understand as a creation, it's a wonderful thing. As problem solving, it's never going to work. But as a creation, it's a wonderful thing. And why it's wonderful is it is like art for art's sake. There's no extracurricular meaning to it. There's no hidden agenda. You just like it. We like looking good. So what's wrong with that?
Yep, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be any better than you like it and it's nice.
Right.
Because it is nice.
Exactly.
And the third thing is the notion of structural tension, that it is the end result and current reality. And then from that 2 data points, from this to the desired state, the actual state, and being clear about both. You don't have to be like tremendously clear. You have to be clear enough that you know what you're creating. that then becomes the structure of the creative process, and leave your concepts at the door. Doesn't matter what you believe.
Love that. And that's really what I want to encourage everybody to leave with today, is to really start to look at, what do you want to create? What do you want to create just because you love it? And when you're from this place and just spend time in that, things come to you. The vision gets bigger. But if we don't have a vision, or we don't know where we want to go in life because we're not choosing it, then we will get up every morning and we will oscillate, and we will fumble around on social media, and we'll attach to other people's ideas or visions for our life versus creating our own. And that's what I really love about your work, because it makes it not personal. It's not personal. Yeah. We're here to have fun, enjoy all the colors of the rainbow, write rock songs like you. It's like I have 4 different jobs, and I chose them because I love it. And one piece that you really brought to me, Robert, was just that. And what I said is, I actually realized I love creating. I've always created, but always that little thread of it was out of problem solving, or what humankind does is out of self-worth. And worth is great, but it's not personal. And now I can just be free and create what I want. And, you don't have you don't stand back when you should be on camera saying what you want to say to the world. You don't stand back when, it's just this freedom of expression. And so I just really want to thank you for all of your incredible work. It's been so fun to bring this into the Life in Bloom coaching programs that I'm doing. And the women are just really loving it and finding freedom in it. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors in Japan and writing rock songs and everywhere else. Is there anything
else? Can we tell
else
people about?
Yeah, I want to see where we can find
people. Yeah, www.robertfritz.com. And there's 2 courses we're doing this fall. One is called Your Life is Art, which is a personal transformational course. And the other is Fundamentals of Structural Thinking, which is a consulting course, or a course that a lot of people in the helping professions come to. So if you go on my website, you'll see the dates. And those are both online courses. So they're
fully accessible.
You don't have to go travel.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to travel someplace. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Robert, thank you so much for being on the Awaken Beauty podcast. Gracious of your time, all that you've done, and we'll be in touch in the future. And for all of you that listen to the Awaken Beauty podcast, make sure you like, love, and subscribe to wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And until next time, stay sane, get sleep, and bring your sexy back. All right, ladies, if you're looking for natural, organic, solution-based beauty and superior CBD, go to evokebeauty.com. That's EVOQbeauty.com and receive 25% off your very first order with the code AWAKEN. Again, that's EVOQbeauty.com. Type in the code AWAKEN for 25% off your first order. Well, hello, Awaken Beauty. Thank you so much for joining the show today. Were you inspired? Please leave a comment or your own personal aha moment so others can capture exactly what you did. Also, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're interested in high quality natural products for your hair, skin, and wellness, including organic CBD, please visit evokebeauty.com. Again, that is evokebeauty.com, evoqbeauty.com. And until next time, darling, stay sane, get sleep, and bring your sexy back.